79 of the Hoop Threads podcast. Been looking forward to this one for a while. Finally, we're able to make it happen. Coach Patrick Behan of St. John's College High School. How's it going, Coach?
It's going well. Appreciate you having me on, Aaron.
Hey, man, anytime. So let's get right into it. So let's kind of start at the beginning. Your high school career. Grew up in Virginia. Transferred to Notre Dame after your freshman season of high school. Ended up winning a state championship there. First question is, do you think you would have made it as far as you did kind of in this basketball game without that transfer? Was that a pivotal moment for you?
I do think it was a pivotal moment. I think I still would have been, successful as a player, but I think the transfer and the opportunity that I had at Notre Dame just gave me more options, allowed me to compete at a higher level, which I think prepared me more to go on the next level and play at Bucknell.
Okay. Talk about that college selection process and kind of what led you to choosing Bucknell. I think you said as a junior you were 6'7", and then kind of started to receive some of that college interest. So how did you whittle that down?
Yeah, so I had a lot of offers varying from Patriots, Ivies, schools in the MAC, Big South, SoCon, some CAAs. And I think my final five was Kent State, George Mason, Davidson, UNC Wilmington, and Bucknell. I had visited Wilmington officially, and then my next one was Bucknell. Decided to go there. It was definitely a tough decision. Those became the final two. And it's tough when you're young. You go through the pros and cons. And I look at things a lot differently now as a coach in terms of the recruiting process. But for me, kind of going through the first time as a kid, it was definitely challenging and stressful. But I felt Bucknell was the best balance for me, athletically, academically, location-wise, and it just seemed like that's where it was meant to be.
Okay. You went against some dudes in your playing career at Bucknell, especially in the non-conference. I was listening to shout out to Mark Stern, his interview with you actually the first year that you took the St. John's job. You mentioned Ty Lawson, Chris Wright, Kevin Durant, Scotty Reynolds, Rudy Gay. What's the best story that you have from some of those matchups?
Well, a few of those guys were more so in high school, like Ty, Kevin. Never actually played against Chris, other than like some AAU stuff. But Ty Lawson was just, as far as guards that I, consistently been around, either played with on his team or against in AAU growing up in high school, just created such an advantage for his team offensively. And, to me, he was just special, and, how quick he was and explosive and finding the right spots to either score or set up with teammates. Funny story about, with Kevin Durant joining the DC Blue Devils. So Morello Vest, who's now, top assistant at PBI, recruited me when I was a freshman in high school. And I started playing with the Blue Devils 15, 16. And at the time, KD was with the Maryland Jaguars. And I remember we had practice at George Washington over at the Smith Center. And I walked in the gym and Kevin Durant was there. And I knew my time with the Blue Devils was going to come to an end pretty soon. So obviously he's who he is, a Hall of Famer. And Rudy Gay was a couple years older. I remember my first year at Notre Dame. Rudy was 2 years older, and I wasn't playing much as a sophomore. And I remember I ended up guarding him and picked him up full court, stole the ball, and made a layup. And that was like, as a kid, my claim to fame was like, yeah, I took the ball from Rudy and had 2 points. It was only 2 points of the game for me, but but yeah, in college, Scotty was same year as me, one of the best guards, that I've been around, and was also on his team at ABCD camp. Played against Luke Herringody, and I think he might have had 20 that game, so I held him to like 6 points in his average. But they scored 100, and we lost at Notre Dame. But yeah, a lot of really good players.
Little victories. All right, so talk about the transition your playing to coaching career. So you graduated in 2010 from Bucknell, played in the Germany Pro League, and then came back.
Yep.
Worked for St. Mary's College. What was it like, as a Division III assistant, kind of learning how all the coaching stuff gets started?
Yeah, I think that year working at St. Mary's College was as pivotal for me in getting into coaching as any other single season. I didn't get paid. I was working as a volunteer. I was paying, $500 to live in a woman's house, and had my own room, and, down there in the sticks of St. Mary's County. And I did a ton of recruiting. I was on the road daily because with Division III, there's no restrictions. There's no dead period. So, whether I was going to Northern Virginia or Baltimore or PG, DC, whatever it is, I was always on the road pretty much as soon as like my workday ended. And my workday consisted of either substitute teaching or I worked at the front desk of a hotel from 7 to 3, and I had my backpack and hit the road and went to games. And through that experience, I fell in love with high school coaching. And I knew that I wanted to take that step. But also, I was able to, ingratiate myself with Chris Harney, and he gave me a lot of responsibility right away in terms of scouting, player development, and practice planning. So, kind of had my hands in everything, and I think that helped, especially becoming a head coach.
Mm-hmm. And so your next move was, working at St. John's under Coach Mack, Coach Sean McAloon, before he went on to IMG. And I heard that you also worked for St. Elizabeth's Middle School as a teacher. So, what were some of the biggest things that you learned for Coach Mack while you're working under him at St. John's?
Yeah, I learned a ton from Sean, and I still, lean on some of the things that we did together in those 2 years. And his approach, his detail to running a practice, to prepping for games, live scouting, recruiting, communicating with parents, and being present in gyms, and just really how to run a program, and look it up to him as a leader. And obviously his work and his success over the years speaks to itself.
Okay. After that, you took the head coach job at St. Mary's Ryken, WCAC school. Definitely out in the sticks quite a bit. Talk about building up that successful program. What were kind of some of your first priorities when you got there, and then what kind of led to your success there?
Sure, that was an exciting time, and I was fortunate to get that job at a pretty young age in the league. And having spent a year down there at St. Mary's College, I was accustomed to the lifestyle and just the kind of way of life down there. And my first assignment was really to make sure that I connected with the guys who were on the team that were going to be coming back. And there were some good returning players, but for where we needed to be, where we wanted to be, we had to get better players. So recruiting was number one. Recruiting some of the kids that maybe I was already recruiting at St. John's that we might not have gotten because the distance or the unfamiliarity or the level at the time. But we did an awesome job of getting in high quality kids, and we elevated the program quite a bit in just a couple of years. Okay,
gotcha. And then after that, you ended up coming back to St. John's College High School as the head coach. Talk about your first day there. Talk about that transition and kind of what that was like to you. Some of your first priorities, kind of like you said, ingratiating yourself back into the St. John's community.
Yeah, the first day was the whole first week, but especially those first couple of days was a whirlwind. First things first, I had to talk to our kids at Ryken, and that was an emotional meeting because I had invested in those kids, and we had a lot coming back, and sharing that news with them, so they heard it first from me. And then when I went up to St. John's to sign contract paperwork, I spent a lot of time on the phone. That was the first thing. And that ride from Ryken to St. John's and in rush hour and back, I was on the phone with parents and kids from St. John's, and really just trying to hit the ground running. And then once I was live on site with the team, this was like, I want to say Summer League may have already, it was already started. We were playing in the DeMatha Summer League, the Capital Hoop Summer League, and I wanted to make sure I was coaching and present, and we just got to work right away. Had a couple of open gyms, practices, and we were already on the court, and we had a good summer together. So really, we just got to work, but definitely like a lot of time spent on the phone, no doubt.
That's kind of how it goes in our industry for sure. Your situation was a bit unique because you were an assistant at St. John's before and kind of had relationships with some of those seniors at the time. We kind of just talked about the first day, but what were some of like the early kind of non-negotiables with you as far as your coaching philosophy and what you wanted to preach? And I mean, I guess a lot of it from our conversations has been more just kind of continuing what Coach Mack had going. But I guess what were some of the things that you were doing differently, and then what were some of the things you were prioritizing as a head coach there?
Yeah, so I think there was some comfortability with the older kids on the team because I was involved in their recruitment or already had been at St. John's for a year, when I was kind of leaving to go to Ryken. So like Trey Wood, Richard Njoku, Quanzi Samuels. Quanzi unfortunately had torn his ACL that summer, but it was good to have a relationship with the older guys already. I think it was a little bit of trickle down effect. And, there are a lot of similarities between me and Sean, but there's also a lot of differences. So I didn't want to just, kind of say, hey, I'm going to do everything that was done before, because I think every coach has to be themselves. And that's what it was. So took a little bit of getting used to, probably a different style in some regards, but the non-negotiables in terms of like how we played really didn't change from Ryken to St. John's to really what it is now. So, it was a somewhat smooth transition, but it's new and there's expectations. So, there's definitely pressure coming in and filling the footsteps of Sean, who, had won a championship and obviously was doing really well at St. John's.
How was the situation at St. John's kind of before he got there? I just got here 5 years ago, so I guess kind of history wise, I'm kind of ignorant to what he was taking over from.
So Sean took over from Coach DeStefano, who coaches for 17 years at St. John's, and he's a hell of a coach. One of the best coaches the area has seen, and he's still a teacher at St. John's. So he's now spent 27 years with the St. John's community in some facet. But that's kind of where it started when he stepped down. Sean came in, and I remember coming in with his office, and we're talking about the roster. We had a couple kids who came in, transferred back. They actually started at St. John's, Darren Bryant and James Palmer, and reshaping the roster a little bit, but also combining it with the kids that were returning. Darren Anderson, Trey Campbell, Mike Marcel, Lonte Holston, so James Mitchell. But that was kind of the situation when Sean came in.
Okay. When a parent kind of comes in and you're talking to them, obviously you build a relationship after kind of seeing their son play for the first time, have them on campus, stuff like that. Sometimes parents will kind of try to compare the school you're at to a different school that's also talking to them as well. How do you speak about your program and what they have to offer without kind of negative recruiting? Because I think it's kind of easy to get caught up in that as a competitor sometimes. You want the kid to go to St. John's.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times where you might want to say certain things to kind of boost your school and put St. John's or wherever you're at in the best light. But I think the worst thing to do is to negative recruit, because I think ultimately that can just come back to bite you. And I think the best selling point or the best recruiting point is to promote your school and what you're good at, what St. John's has to offer. And I firmly believe what we have to offer is the best that there is. So when you feel that and you believe it, you don't really need to get into to the other programs, and you have to have respect for everybody who's trying to do a job and recruit the best players.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So what is the kind of selling point for you? Imagine kind of I'm a St. John's recruit. What would be some of the conversations that you have, talking about the values that your school could bring to their life?
Sure. So, well, one thing is that we want to run everything as close to a college program as possible. And a lot of the kids that we coach are going to go on to play the next level, and we want them to be prepared for that. So there's going to be certain things that we do, whether it's terminology, the scouting reports, the year-round strength coach, the way we run workouts and practices, the involvement and player development that our staff has. So we want them to know that like the experience they're going to get for 4 years is going to put them in the best place, day one, wherever they go to college. St. John's is a great school academically. Being in WCAC, you're going to get the best competition night and out, in the league, play in national schedule, non-conference, all those things. It's a diverse school, about 1,300 kids, and I think you can get a great experience socially as well.
Okay. Got you. Next question is kind of a hot button topic in this area. I've been talking to some high school coaches. I'm interested to get your perspective because you've been on both ends of it. With 7 years in the business now. What is the right way to handle a student athlete potentially transferring into your program?
Sure. So I think the best way is finding out if it makes sense from a culture standpoint. Certainly a lot of kids can play, but if you're too, if you're too trigger happy and you make a decision that, could end up not being the best fit. I think you want to do as much homework as possible in terms of what makes sense for the way you run your program, the fit, the culture, and what you need as a roster, coming in, whether it's position or, scoring, toughness, length, interior play. And then a lot comes down to the admissions process. I mean, there's been kids that, we could have maybe gotten in and they would have been starters or, all league kids, but it just didn't work out from an admission standpoint. So there's a lot of variables behind the scenes that are a little bit out of my control. You just have to do the best to navigate that with the timing of the spring and summer, while still giving everything you got for your kids and developing them.
Got you. Okay. What have you learned about managing your program off the court, kind of scheduling the right games with enough rest days in between, kind of finding that happy balance, getting into bigger tournaments to kind of boost the name recognition, I guess, for your program and some of your players, scouts and college coaches? What are some of the best advice you have for young coaches kind of looking to learn more about the off the court responsibilities that a head coach has?
Yeah, in terms of game scheduling, I think you have to know your team, and be realistic with what's best. And, if you've got the guys that are being recruited at that level, and if you feel like you've got a really strong group that contend, you want to test yourself as much as possible. You're already going to get tested in the league, so everyone in the league is going to get those games. But now with these national schedules and tournaments, and the NIBC and other schools where they're taking juniors and seniors, the best ones potentially from our area, I think it's important that you go out and play and test yourself in these events, these non-conference games. You might not want to have a headbanger every single non-conference game because there's 14 of them now, so you might want to be careful with one or two. But I think playing and getting out of town and doing those things is a positive, and the kids want to do it, which is most important.
Okay. As coaches, we're expected to be strong, kind of regardless of the circumstance of the situation, to kind of be that anchor for the young men that we're put in charge of leading, not just through, their basketball on-court experience, but also kind of through life. How have you learned to deal with like the anxiety and kind of like the burden that comes with that responsibility over the years as a head coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you play a tough game and, you lose one at the buzzer, or you're on a 2-game losing streak. You drop one, maybe you think you shouldn't have dropped, and you got to really be able to collect yourself and make sure the guys know in the locker room afterwards that, there's things we got to fix and get better at. Or, you see them the next day in the gym and it's, hey, the sun rose and we're all here and we got a job to do. It's to work and spend this hour and a half, 2 hours in the gym and get better and get them to understand what the journey of a season really is, which I know there's so many battles all year and so many practices that I don't think you can overreact too much, and you just try to instill them the confidence of what we're doing is the right way to do things through the tough times.
Okay. Let's talk next about kind of navigating different relationships. We'll spend like maybe 30 seconds on each one, but kind of talk about navigating relationships with AAU coaches in the area.
Yeah, I think it's vital. And that's something that I learned when I was an assistant at St. John's is you want to do your best to maintain relationships with all the good AAU programs in the area. Different shoe circuits, different coaches, personalities. And we want to be able to recruit from all those programs. And, there might be times where we have more kids from one program, but you want to be present in as many gyms with as many programs as possible, so you can really recruit the student athletes that you want.
Okay. Next is parents.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned about kind of navigating, like figuring out what kind of lines and boundaries that you have to set as a head coach that you want to communicate, but there's certain things that just need to maybe like you have to set the line of, I'm only going to talk about your son, or we're not going to talk about playing time. What have you kind of learned about those conversations with parents and kind of maintaining that relationship over 4 years?
Yeah. Well, I've learned that if you get a text that says, do you have a few minutes to catch up? It's probably about playing time. But no, in all seriousness, we've had great parents over the years, but, you certainly deal with situations that are tough and frustrating where you're like, there's nothing else I can do or say. But if you try to appease every single parent and go down the road of talking to every parent on the phone about role minutes, your head's just going to fall off because you're just going to dig yourself in a rabbit hole. And, ultimately no one's ever going to always be happy. That's just the nature of sports and how competitive it is. And, I'm not a father myself, but I respect the fact that everyone wants the best for their kids. So you just got to navigate the best you can. And, if there's negative noise, tune it out. Don't spend time focusing on that. Do your best with that. And just try to build up the bond with your players as much as possible. And, you do set the guidelines, excuse me, as much as possible that, we're not talking after games or, everyone's, hot and bothered after a game, like, sleep on it. And then if there needs to be a conversation, you have one. But, you try to let the parents trust you to do your job.
Okay. Got you. With assistant coaches, talk about your selection process for kind of who you want to work around and who you want to have around your kids, as well as, what you've learned about kind of delegating to those assistant coaches. Cause like you said, you can't do everything on your own.
Yeah, I think we have an awesome staff. I love our group. And, we've got guys that work in the building, which I think is huge. And while I did not teach in the building this year, I have before, which I think was very valuable, but also having, Steve and Pat in the building daily to handle a lot of stuff that goes on within the confines of the school and communication wise. It's very, very important. So that balance of having guys on your staff within the school, I think is good. Having a staff with flexibility hour wise that, they can pretty much be at everything and are willing to recruit, willing to get in the gym with players and people that are hungry to work for the program is most important.
Okay. And then lastly, kind of talk about, working with players. When you got involved in the coaching game, you were only 2 or 3 years removed from, playing yourself. And I'm sure you've learned a ton as far as, how to communicate with them and, kind of how to work with them in that regard. So kind of give us some advice in that realm.
Yeah, I think there's, as a young coach, you might have as much experience as other guys who may have been in the league for 10, 15 years that you're coaching against when the ball's tipped up, but you also are a little bit fresher in terms of having just played in somewhat of a similar area. It should be era in terms of, how things work in the DMV and, some of the frustrations I went through as a player, whether it was early in high school or early in college. I can relate to the emotions that the kids deal with and sympathize with them, but also be able to hold them to a certain standard and, maybe talk them through some of the moments they're going through. I think is valuable and, more off the court stuff.
Okay. Talk about your school's relationship with Kevin Plank and with Under Armour, and then also kind of what you learned about, getting to have the right relationship with administrators, because, they can't be involved in everything day to day, but obviously you want to stay on good kind of a communication wavelength with them, I assume.
Yeah. So Kevin Plank is obviously a quite famous alum with his role with Under Armour and what he's done with that company and building up to what it is. And, I see him, occasionally, but, as far as his role is, he just supports us and wants the school to do well. A lot of the one cool thing about, when he donated all the money to St. John's, a lot of it probably gets looked at from the outside as, oh, this is just going to athletics, which is not true. So many projects were in place because of that donation, whether it's, the new fine arts center or the student lounge, like so much of it really had nothing to do with athletics. He just wants his school to, prosper and have those resources for the kids, whether you're an athlete or not. So, but no, he's a great guy. And, the times I've interacted with him, he's been nothing but supportive and, happy for our success.
Cool. And then what have you learned about kind of administrators, athletic directors, at Ryken and as well at St. John's?
Yeah, it's vital to have a close relationship with them, whether it's the president, principal, ADs, the deans. And I think that we've done a good job at both stops in terms of, how our kids present themselves and what they do day to day, because, they're looking at that as much as they're looking at, do you win games or, how many points do they average? It's, and I think they respect and appreciate when, kids do the right things and, you kind of build that trust with them and, have more ground to stand on when it comes to recruiting and doing what you have to do athletically.
Okay. Last question, kind of in this realm, and then we'll kind of get to this past year, which was a magical one for you guys for sure. Uh, your program is really good at scouting, like advanced scouting opponents and stuff like that. My guy Pat O'Connor is really good with that, and I'm sure some of the other assistant coaches are as well. I wasn't on the varsity coaching staff for this, but you guys had a really good game plan and beat a really talented DeMatha team in the WCAC semifinals in 2019. Talk about your game plan going into that game, and what did it mean to you, kind of having lost to DeMatha in the playoffs before?
Yeah, so that same season that we beat DeMatha in the semis when they were the #1 seed at American, we lost to them a couple weeks prior where we were up by 2 and there was a foul, late in the game, and Hunter made 2 free throws, and we ended up losing in overtime. And we felt like we had a good game plan then. I think the combination of having another good game plan with that extra hunger and incentive to make it right, and get a chance to play in the finals. Our kids left it all out on the floor, but they had such a good roster. I mean, Jameer, Earl, Justin, Hunter. And the thing with Hunter is, he always had to be accounted for, and even if he wasn't scoring, other guys were being able to get advantage opportunities on closeouts or open threes. And I just think our kids battled. Mikey Square is 6'5", on a good day, probably 6'4", and he guarded in the whole game. And one of the things we wanted to do was, not too different from the finals this year, is we felt like we had an advantage with our guards and ball screens. And making them have to decide what they're going to do with Hunter on those. And, whether it was Mikey pick and popping and he had some big shots, or Jalen Abbott, if we were even smaller, he was at the 5. Casey Morcell and Ish Leggett, we trusted them to make the right plays, and then they got opportunities to score off a ball screen. So, offensively, that was our game plan, and defensively, it was about being as tough as possible and trying to make their guards hit more 2s than 3s.
Mm-hmm. Got you. All right, let's talk about this past season. You started off 15-0, nationally ranked, finished 26-2, won the WCAC championship. We'll kind of get to that later. Talk about the expectations that you had coming into this season, with Daquan Davis transferring in, Caden Lewis transferring out, some really, really good freshmen coming into the program. Talk about how you kind of succeeded immediately coming out of the gate.
Yeah, well, to be honest, in the summer we weren't very good. We played a couple scrimmages, we had the live periods, and we just weren't connected. And part of that's just how it is. Everybody's playing an AU, and you come together for June. But I knew with Daquan coming in that he was going to give us an extra punch on both ends of the floor. But it took some getting adjusted to. Him and Malik playing together. Freshmen going from playing 8th grade basketball to getting major minutes against older, stronger kids. And then Donnie really took a step, and Ray Watts and Tim Barton, they got better, and they, elevated their role from what their junior years were like. So I think he just came together through work and being in the gym and getting better. Because truly, yeah, if you told me in the summer kind of how we were playing, it just wasn't going to be good enough. But we didn't play like we did in the summer during the season. So I think that's a credit to the kids and the coaches too, really working and spending time to develop and get to where we need to be come the beginning of the season in December.
Was there like a consistent message or mantra that you can kind of remember being repeated, throughout the season, either by the players or by yourself or your coaching staff?
I think it was trust. One of our issues maybe early on, or what could have been an issue this year, would be if we didn't trust each other. If we had stretches of being individuals in games for just 2 minutes, let alone 2 minutes a quarter, we probably lose 10 games this year, just off of that. So I think we really developed that trust and that chemistry on both ends of the floor, and everyone accepted their role from top to bottom. Even if it was a young man who didn't play at all, they played a big role. So, and that's the same with coaches. With my issue this year with health, I really relied on the staff, a ton, and I'm so thankful for DeMar, for Yashar, for James, for Pat, Steve, our strength coaches, everybody, the managers. We were just all in it together, and you just kind of had that feeling all year.
From the recent ESPN kind of special, on you and your fight against ALS, Pat O'Connor had a great quote: "A good coach can change a game, but a great coach can change a life." You, I feel like you've always been an emotional coach. This year, you could still see that passion. It was more of a kind of a controlled fire. Your players kind of noticed you took a different approach and trusted them to lead the team with you, and kind of talked about, you were always talking about the importance of, good teams being player-led teams. Kind of, did you see that transformation in your coaching style this season, and was that intentional?
I think it's both. I mean, part forced to because of where my energy levels were and, picking my spots. But I think I also learned, right away, diagnosed, and this is like you're dating back to May. It takes a village for me to fight this. Like, there's so many people that are supporting me, friends, family, loved ones, and that was kind of the message to the team, is like for us to have a successful year and achieve all that we want, it's going to take a village. And I trusted that, in my coaching, with the responsibility that the whole staff had. Um, it didn't hurt to have Malik Mack, who's our floor general, and a kid who's been with me for 4 years, and I could really trust him. He trusted me. We had a great bond. Got better every year, and it just kind of culminated this year. And the toughness that the kids played with, and we still went through moments in the preseason and stuff that happens, just like every coach deals with. And but when push came to shove, and we were in between the lines against another opponent, it was all about St. John's versus the other team.
Mm. The leaders on this team, Tim, Malik, Daquan, Donnie, kind of willed their way to winning a WCAC championship, and the best game I've seen in the DMV. Talk about taking that journey with them and kind of what you remember most from that night, leading up to the game and then during the game.
Yeah, well, I'll just start with the tournament, playing good council in the quarters. Good council, very good team, very good program, and we survived that one. We got a win and played our rival Gonzaga for the third time, and we know everyone said it's always tough to beat the team 3 times in a row, let alone your rival. But we were excited for that opportunity, that challenge, and we won a close game there. And then going into the finals, it just got back to toughness. That was the biggest message that I could provide, because politics is so good. I mean, Glenn does an amazing job annually, and we knew they hadn't lost a game in the league for a reason. We knew they were top 5 in the country for a reason, right? But the kids all know each other, right? We played against each other, so they know us, we know them. What's a way that can kind of put us on top by 2 points? And we just kind of kept delivering that toughness message. And I don't think our kids could have been any tougher.
Gotcha. And was that the early good counsel game where they got you guys at home? They ended up kind of leading wire to wire, winning that game after you guys came back from California. Malik said you guys were a little fat and happy at that point. Was that kind of the turning point in the season for you?
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of human nature in that game. I don't know what our record was. Maybe, I know we hadn't lost yet. We had beaten IMG, and coming off exams, played Friday, and I was a little bit worried about how we would come into the game with a little bit of that exam stuff. And you read rankings and undefeated and national this or that. But really, credit to good counsel. They made a ton of shots, and we made a big run, and they staved us off and won the game. But I think that was a learning lesson for our whole group, and we channeled that into the rest of our games the rest of the year.
Okay. What makes the DMV special to you? Is it the coaches? Is it kind of like the matchups, the leagues? What makes the DMV, kind of the hotbed, the best hotbed for high school basketball in the country?
Well, one, I think it's the proximity. There's so many freaking good players and coaches and the talent level in such a small radius. And there's a lot of really good schools too, where kids have options to go. So that drives recruiting to another level of intensity. And the league games are, you just look through the league, how many Division I players, 2, 3 are there, and you got to always be ready. So I think it's just a special area and environment where these kids grow up loving the game, and they train, and they want to get to the highest level. And as a coach, if you're going to coach them, you better, be ready to do your job with them.
Okay. We're going to run through a couple quick hitters real quick, and then 2 or 3 questions after them. We'll get you out of here. Feeling all right?
Oh yeah, appreciate
All right. So quick hitters, what's a game show you think you could win?
it. A game show, I think I could win. Family Feud.
Invite 3 basketball minds to a dinner to chop it up with.
3 basketball lines. Jay Wright, um, Reggie Miller, and Jay, Reggie, and Larry Bird.
Okay. They say that imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. What coach have you stolen the most from?
I'd have to probably split it between Pat Flannery, Sean, and Dave Paulson.
Got you. You've coached a lot of great players at St. John's. I'm sure that there's been a couple that didn't end up playing in a cadet's uniform. What's the one recruit that got away?
Got away. I don't know. I might be too prideful to say they got away, but well, I'll say this. So Jameer Young, and Mackay, I had at Ryken, and had a great 2 years, and they were going their junior year. And when I got the job at St. John's, unfortunately, the league didn't allow them to come with me to St. John's, and ironically enough, I ended up having to play against them with Mackay at McNamara for his senior year and Jameer DeMatha for 2, and still incredibly close with both and their families. So those would be probably, I'd say, the 2 that got away in terms of, which I was able to coach them for their full 4 years.
Okay. Would you rather take a charge from Shaq or try to guard KD with the game on the line?
Shaq, George.
Hey,
I'm battling a lot of tougher things than taking a heavy blow. I'll live with that, but I don't know if I'm going to stop against KD in any point in my life.
What book is a must read for every basketball coach?
Speaking of Punch, I don't know, the John Feinstein book, The Punch, Rudy Tomjanovich. Obviously, it details, the Kermit Washington and the Punch, but it digs into DC basketball and where Kermit played growing up, and Feinstein does an awesome job with that. And I think that's a cool one for anybody in this area to read, maybe a little more under the radar.
Okay. What's the hardest shot in basketball to you? Is it a certain spot on the floor, a certain type of shot? Like for me, it's, when you dump off to the big right in that kind of short corner just outside the block area, it's kind of hard to finish right there. What's the hardest shot in basketball to you?
Well, I tell our players not to take contested 2s. They don't always listen, and sometimes they go in and you live with it. But I just take it in general of the percentages of certain shots, kind of go down when you're maybe, the shot fake where you're open just to dribble into a contested shot. But I would say is maybe the hardest and not one of the smartest either.
Malik had a great career doing that and hitting those at a pretty high clip. So I'm assuming those ones you just kind of let go.
Oh yeah, Malik and Quan are 2 of the best shot makers I've had, and I think that's part of coaching too, and understanding that they're the ones who might be allowed to do it, and other ones maybe not so much. Where your personnel, which is important as anything in coaching.
Got you. Would you rather manage minutes with kind of cards and rotations from your assistants, or is that just kind of a feel thing?
In terms of the in-game rotation?
Yep.
I think we have a pretty good idea going into the game, but also play dictates it, foul dictates it, foul trouble. So, and there's also those moments where you might just react and, your instincts say, hey, we got to go here. We got to do this. We got to go small. We got to, get him in and give us a spark. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay. Got you. Well, that gets us through the quick hitters. We'll just kind of move on to the last portion of the interview. So, talk about, on May 6th, 2022, you were diagnosed with ALS. Talk about your support system, your family, your partner, your team and stuff like that, and how they've kind of picked you up, and I'm sure how you've tried to pick them up in return by kind of doing everything you can to fight this.
Yeah, so getting that official diagnosis was certainly heartbreaking, sadness, frustration. But I quickly leaned on those people. Natalie was amazing in supporting me and helping me get with the right people. And Anthony, my sister Alexis, and Tim Brooks and Stephen Tyree, Pat Harwood. I can go on and on. Become closer friends with people that I wasn't even before. And it's just been humbling to get the genuine support. And that's why I kind of revert back to, it takes a village, and trusting them to manage a lot of things that I don't have the energy or capacity to manage in terms of my health. So I'm grateful for all of them. And, it just meant a lot to me to keep doing what I love to do. I like to play golf and get out there, and I can't really do that. My game, basketball wise, I'm not in the best shape anymore, but I can still go out and shoot and get in drills. I couldn't do that, so I had to live with some of the things that weren't going to be available to me.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I could still coach. My heart was in it. My head my mind is as sharp as it's ever been, and I was able to coach. And those first couple months, the players didn't know. The symptoms weren't there enough for it to be obvious. But I wanted to make sure that I shared with him before we got back to school, and that's what I did. And I told everyone on that meeting, I'll give everything I can, as much as I can, humanly possible, and I did that, and I will continue to do that.
So you've, kind of in this journey, you've been like an absolute inspiration to thousands of people kind of in your fight against ALS, especially in the DMV, and, myself included. What have you learned about yourself in this time?
I learned that I have an inner strength that maybe I didn't know I had. And I don't think anybody can know what that level of inner strength is until they're really put to the test.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of this has been about my disease diagnosis. My dad passed a couple of years ago with it. He was only diagnosed for a couple of days before he passed. Once he was in the hospital, just a month or two later, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she passed in this past fall. Just months ago, while I was going through the diagnosis, and there was a lot thrown at me prior to the disease for myself, and then you don't really have much time to think. You got to really be able to react and live and do the best that you can. So I think that you just learn the threshold of your strength, and hopefully that was instilled in our guys, and I believe it was. But I'm proud to have been their coach this year, and proud to have coached everyone I've coached and given that opportunity in life that many people will never have. And the plan is to keep going.
There was two really big quotes to me in the documentary. The first one was pretty heartbreaking. You said, "My biggest dream is to live." That's real. And you said that you actually feel the biggest difference physically, mentally, emotionally when you're in the gym, which I can definitely relate to that part. What do you want your legacy to be?
Well, just to kind of carry over what you just mentioned about the goal to live, and you mentioned like being good at scouting and game preparation and all that stuff. In a crazy way, I look at it as like, I'm the biggest underdog in the world right now, but there's still a chance. There's still things to be done to increase chances. So again, reacting and quickly becoming aggressive and on the offensive to get with the best doctors, make sure I can get to these medicines as quickly as possible, that we can raise money to take these medicines, and I take care of my body and do all the things I need to do and have no regrets with the circumstances. Certainly a lot will be out of my control, but that's the same as playing a game. So I can only control what I can control in terms of giving myself the best opportunity to fight this. So I think that it's a pretty good life lesson in its own right. But as far as my legacy, that'll be determined with what other people view. But I think that it's pretty clear what we did this year is quite special, and I think it'll never be forgotten. And continue on. More opportunities ahead, but I think everybody who knows the work and the heart and soul that went into this with our group, and and through the battle. Something special that will be, passed down ideally to generations to come.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the questions I have for you today, Coach. Really appreciate the time. Is just gonna kind of give you the stage now. If there's anything else that you'd like to say to, some of the St. John's fans, some of, the fans of just you in general, from this experience, I just kind of want to give you the floor there.
Yeah, I would love to say thank you to all the supporters, certainly, within our program, St. John's community, the basketball community, and anybody who's reached out. You get a lot of emails and texts and calls, and even more than the ones about, hey, congrats on the win, congrats on the season. Those ones after the special ran on ESPN this last week, people I've never heard of from Ohio and from Missouri and Texas that are just sending me kind word emails that they were motivated, inspired. They watched in a hospital and they're going through stuff. They're going through battles, and they've opened up about some things that they've gone through. It's very humbling, and I'm very appreciative of all the support and attention to the matter that's been on hand.
Yes, sir. Well, that concludes our episode with Coach Behan, St. John's College High School. Really appreciate the time. Look forward to seeing you guys soon here. The AU season right around the corner, man. There's no
the circuit is here, but at least the sun will be out. I guess we'll be enjoying either way.
Appreciate it, Coach. Talk soon.
Thanks, man.